If the Bureau is going to send an informant in, the informant's going to be wired. And if the Bureau is monitoring telephone calls, there's going to be a transcript of that. But they haven't been made public. And I think one in particular it has the potential to actually persuade people. There is some information in these transcripts that I think has the potential to be a game changer if it's ever made public.
And possibly even get Democrats to pay attention. And maybe it has something to do with George Papadopoulos. Former Oversight Chair Trey Gowdy claimed the FBI withheld potential game-changer evidence from the FISA court during the Russia probe. What could that be? Let's ask someone who might just know. He is on the House Oversight Committee, GOP member, Congressman Mark Meadows. Congressman, I'm sure you saw that. You know Trey Gowdy. What does he mean?
Well, he's a real serious chairman and actually has seen some documents that actually I have not seen, but we have come to the same conclusion. And that is, indeed, George Papadopoulos was actually taped and recorded. And those interviews, actually, there are records of those. And I think what happens is, in my conversations with Mr. Papadopoulos and others, when that comes out, when the president declassifies that, I think the American people will be astonished to see that not only was it going on, and the president was right that he was actually taped and recorded, but other than that is he was not colluding with the Russians, and they knew this very early on. And so that could be the game changer that Trey is referring to.
Right, but they just destroyed his life and put him in jail for 12 days. But that's no big deal. It's only George Papadopoulos, right? It's only a person, an American citizen. Now, I'm just wondering, Ambassador Downer happens to meet him in a bar. Could he possibly have been wearing a wire? Joseph Mifsid's got Russian ties. Does he really have Russian ties? Because the Mueller report says he does, but there's no proof he does. The guy's from Malta, living in London.
Well, I mean, when you look at the narrative that is out there, there's a whole lot of suggestions that the professor, as we call him, had Western intelligence ties. That's supported in a number of other areas, especially from his Italian connections. Additionally, when we start to look at this, it's not just with Mr. Downer and the professor, but it's also a lot of the operation that went on even after that. So before July 31st of 2016, when the investigation opened, we know that there were some improper activities going on, and after, certainly there were, and I believe that Attorney General Barr is very serious at getting to the bottom of it.
Last 10 seconds. The president's just got to declassify it and let it go out there. Do you think the delay is almost over?
I think the delay's over. I think the president is serious. I've spoken to him recently, and I think declassification is right around the corner, and hopefully the American people will be able to judge for themselves.
Comey and Brennan are already turning on each other, as well as James Baker is trying to cover his own tracks. This thing is changing quickly. Congressman, thanks so much.
We are taking out this power out of Washington, these bad people. Comey, Brennan, Clapper, we're draining the swamp, folks.
The president promising to get rid of the bad guys today. And while we still haven't connected all the dots, the good news is finally, someone is trying to do that. Watch Attorney General Bill Barr here with our own Bill Hemmer in El Salvador.
In the period of time between Election Day and the inauguration, did anyone in government or in intelligence, did they take action to justify their decisions?
I think there were some very strange developments during that period. That's one of the things we want to look into.
Such as?
Such as the handling of the meeting on January 6th between the intelligence chiefs and the president, and the leaking of information subsequent to that meeting.
Was that meeting in New York City?
Yes.
In Trump Tower?
Yes.
What questions do you have about what happened that day?
Again, I'm not going to get into that.
But it's on your mind.
That's one of the things we need to look at.
Can you characterize how far advanced you are in understanding that meeting?
We're still in the stage of gathering all the information.
Oh, I'm sure glad someone is, because for 2 years I've been wanting to know how on earth an unverified piece of opposition research, the so-called dossier, was never checked by our FBI, never verified. And yet they used that to get a warrant to spy on the Trump campaign. The dossier sure sounds like the insurance policy. Remember the one that Peter Strzok and Lisa Page were referring to when the couple was texting about how awful Trump was? Could have been. And if it was, it makes sense that Barr wants to know why the heads of our intelligence community gathered with the president-elect that day in Trump Tower to present the president-elect with the dossier's findings. I mean, findings that they knew had never been checked. Was it because they wanted it to leak to the press? Think back, right, to that time. Remember how upset the president was about all the leaks that were happening? Watch.
Disgraceful that the intelligence agencies allowed any information that turned out to be so false and fake out. I think it's a disgrace. Papers are being leaked, things are being leaked. It's criminal action, criminal act, and it's been going on for a long time. I've actually called the Justice Department to look into the leaks. Those are criminal leaks.
So all these leaks are going on. He's upset about it. And it turns out the whole time the mainstream media was blaming Trump's inner circle for the leaks, but it actually looks like it was the intel folks. Because, hey, James Comey sure as heck knew how to leak, right? He admitted to this bombshell during some of his testimony in 2017. Watch.
I asked a friend of mine to share the content of the memo with a reporter. Didn't do it myself for a variety of reasons, but I asked him to because I thought that might prompt the appointment of a special counsel. And so I asked a close friend of mine to do it.
And was that Mr. Wittes?
No, no.
Who was that?
A good friend of mine who's a professor at Columbia Law School.
Unbelievable. I remember watching this. I nearly fell off my chair as I heard this. Here was the head of the FBI. He's the leaker. I mean, my goodness. He said, well, I didn't do it myself, but, he had quite an elaborate way to do it. He went to his friend, who was a law professor at Columbia University, who then leaked it to the New York Times. So Comey is a leaker. He knows how to do it. So just think about it. He has this meeting, right, with his pals, his intel pals, and they confront the president-elect, Donald Trump, and that affords them the opportunity to leak to all of America that Russia might have compromising info on the president, even though, of course, they knew that they hadn't checked anything out in that dossier. This is scary stuff. Joining me right now, a member of the House Oversight Committee, South Carolina, Congressman Ralph Norman. Congressman Norman, good to have you back. This is a new development. We had heard some questions surrounding this before. I mean, why exactly did they confront him like they did with this so-called intelligence that they knew hadn't been verified, that they knew was opposition research? Was it all so that could make its way into the press?
You know, Trish, when I got elected, I thought I was going into the legislative branch of government. I didn't think it was going to be the anti-Trump branch of government. That's just what this has turned out to be. And, showing more and more every day. And, on Capitol Hill, the word is Barr has got a good reputation, and the Democrats they didn't like the message that he was, when he had the Mueller report, they didn't like what it said. Mm-hmm. They went after him. That didn't work out so well. And now that the Attorney General has hired Mr. Durham, who's got an equally sterling reputation to gather facts, mm-hmm. It's not going to be a pretty sight when this is over with. And it's sad. It didn't have to be this way.
You know what? You're right. It is sad. And I've said that before, because what's so shocking in all this, right, is that we're going to learn that and I'm pretty sure we're going to learn this, that our FBI is not on the up and up, and that they were deliberately trying to scheme and to plot and to take down a president who had been elected by the American people. And sir, if that's the case, then think of the damage that does to our nation. Think of the damage that it does to our psychology, right? We're supposed to have faith in institutions like the FBI, and yet they let us down.
Well, not only that, Trish, the FBI is the gold standard for law enforcement, for this whole country. It has been for a long time. Mm-hmm. And to weaponize that, we can't put up with it. And the president doesn't want this to happen to anybody else. That's the good thing about it. And he's got people in place that can get to the bottom. They're not political appointees. They are not political hacks. They're people who want the truth. And Durham has been with his department for over the Justice Department for 35 years plus. Never given a political donation. He doesn't do interviews, and unlike Comey, he doesn't leak.
I couldn't believe that, because I remember at the time there were all these leaks. coming out every single day, right? In the intelligence community, and the thinking was, well, you know, maybe the president has surrounded himself in his inner circle with people that are leaking. And it turns out that wasn't the problem. The problem was James Comey, the head of our FBI, who knew exactly how to leak. He knew exactly how to get information out. And I think that that's also something that's quite disturbing. But, you know, don't forget, Congressman, this is a guy who, you know, as much as he wants to present this holier-than-thou reputation, you know, he's all for the FBI and he's all for government, et cetera, et cetera. He worked at a hedge fund, all right? He's not like a, you know, career lifetimer at the FBI.
No, and then look at the emails from Peter Strzok. We will get him. Again, this is unacceptable. And if this happens, this is what happens in Venezuela. We cannot let this stand. In our oversight committee, I'm very disappointed in the chairman not even calling meetings. I mean, look at where we've gone with that. Michael Cohen, that didn't turn out like they thought. They thought he had bombshell news about the president.
Well, you know, hey, Congressman, by the way, remember that dossier that said that he had been to Prague? You know, what does it take, like 2 seconds? You know, don't we have records, you know, of people going in and out of our country at any given time? Or could they have just asked to see his passport? I mean, check the stamps? Because Mueller disproved that one pretty quickly. Yeah, and when we asked, did Michael Cohen, did he go to Prague? No, that put the end of it. How many of the media reported that he was alleged to have gone to Prague, had all these meetings with Russian diplomats? It didn't happen. Well, so the whole thing is about to fall, and it couldn't happen at a better time. Interesting. All right, Congressman Norman, it's good to see you. Thank you so much.